Hello there, and welcome back to The Cave on TAwithMMK with McKay in my man cave. And, it literally feels like a cave sometimes. I've got a couple of lights that one of my photographer friends in my trading group, that's what he does for a living, had mentioned to buy, obviously to get the proper lighting for my videos. But sometimes I find myself spending too much time in this room, and if you've been in this market for a while to where maybe you stare at charts all day long, you might start to feel that way too sometimes. So I want to start today's video out by just mentioning that once in a while it's a good idea to go outside, especially if where you live the sun is shining and it happens to be warm. I realize if it's -20 and you live in Antarctica, that might not be the funnest thing, in which case, find something else to do. But the point is, get away from the charts every once in a while. If you've noticed that my TA hasn't been maybe as on point, or at least not as in depth over the last 3 or 4 days, it's because the weather's been nice. I've been trying to catch up on yard work. I've been doing some other things. I do like to try to get a video out every day, but I just wanted to kind of mention to start today's video that it's important to take a break once in a while, step away from the charts, and often you'll actually come back with a lot more clarity, or at least with a lot clearer head, and you'll be able to make more sound decisions, because sometimes you just need an emotional reset. Now, we are going to talk about a couple things today. One of the things I wanted to talk about actually is Bitcoin on the short term, and kind of a strategy that I have that I'm looking at for the next few days as far as potentially some of the 3S or 3 short tokens that they have on KuCoin. So we will discuss that. If you guys are liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Now, we will start out on the 1 hour chart on the SPX or the S&P 500. That's always where I start my videos typically, but we're only going to be brief. All I wanted to point out today was that in yesterday's video, I mentioned that tomorrow or the next day, which now would be today or tomorrow, that it wouldn't surprise me if we would have pumped up to this red zone that I have up here that's had a lot of interaction, support, right? It's had the most interaction of any of the support and resistance zones that we've messed with over the last few days or weeks. And we didn't even get any push up at all really today. It opened today at just over 4,080, and we just went straight down. We ended the day with a tiny little move to the upside, but for the most part, we just went down. So the question is, are we going to get that little pump, over the next day or two, like I mentioned yesterday, or are we just going to push lower tomorrow and put in a lower high? At some point, if we don't get a rally sooner than later, we have to think that Bitcoin especially is going to break back down, below 28K, and it's going to go back down and revisit, 25, 26, potentially even put in its own lower high, right? So that's kind of what we're going to discuss in the video today, but I just wanted to point out that stocks still just don't look good, especially in the short term. And I'm going to leave a link to the description of another YouTuber that I also am good friends with. Not in real life, we've just met online, but we're good friends. And he has his own YouTube channel. He has 400 and something subscribers, so he's obviously a little bigger than I am. But he's got a lot better grasp on just the economy and stuff. It's something I believe he either has done for a living or else just takes special interest in and takes the effort to, kind of keep up with it and study it a lot better than I do. And he, on his video that he posted today, he just kind of made a good point that, I'm always joking on my Telegram group or with people that I talk to online about the fact that it doesn't seem like any good news, anytime the stocks are trying to do anything positive, there's some bad news that comes out, right? Well, that's not by accident, and I know that. Of course, we all know that stocks are manipulated, and that's, but he just made the point that that's just what they're going to do on purpose, going forward, because, I think the way he worded it more or less was that to get inflation under control, they need to do that in a sense. And so, you can almost bet that anytime the stocks are making any tiny rally, they're going to be met with the resistance of some bad news. Basically means that the relief rally that we would expect, or you should be able to expect from a TA perspective, it may just not ever get the legs under it to happen because, the SEC and, some of them just won't let it happen, right? Or the FOMC, I guess. So anyway, I'll leave a link in the description to his channel. Shoutout. It's actually Alpha Commission if you want to look it up. Real nice guy that runs that channel. Now, SKYFI, if you do watch this video and I worded something or put words in your mouth that were incorrect, obviously you can go in the comments section and clarify. Hopefully I didn't do that. Now we're on the Bitcoin 5-minute chart. I just wanted to point out, this is something I've been tracking in my group since basically just yesterday at some point. Obviously, it's a 5-minute chart, so it's very zoomed in. But I just pointed out that as we put in this potential double top right here, that, you know, and then we were moving around and we had this little rising channel, which obviously had a 68% chance of breaking to the downside. I started already drawing the idea of this rounded top. And I even mentioned it in yesterday's video actually as well, that was a concern to me. It even fits like the mirror pattern thing. You know, you can kind of see that the patterns are just repeating themselves both direction, right? Whatever happens the one direction happens the other direction. Here's this rising channel right here. Here's this right. I mean, there are different levels, price levels that some of it's happening at, but it's almost like it's mirroring each other, right? And what I pointed out yesterday, which I want to point out again today, and this is actually a good strategy if you're newer to trading, but you're having a hard time learning to trade, you know, both directions, is to hit Alt-I on your keyboard, right? Because that will invert your Tradingview chart. And if your brain's just wired to look for, you know, bullish or long setups, which most people's are when they first enter the space, and I'm still guilty of it at times, those are the patterns you first learn to trade. Obviously, until you get a little more into trading, you don't necessarily practice shorting the market, right? You're just looking for opportunities to buy and then opportunities to sell. And so flipping the chart upside down, you can kind of see with a clearer picture. Now, this is just a shorter time frame, obviously, so the outcome's not going to be as large as what would happen if this was a 4-hour pattern. And obviously, it's going to the target for it would also get hit faster. But I just wanted to use this as my example. So you basically have on this 5-minute chart this big rounded bottom, right? Which basically flipped the other way is just a series of, you know, lower highs and lower lows, right? But in this case, once you get to the right side of this inverted, you can see it's putting in higher lows and higher highs, right? So that's very bullish looking. And then as it broke above this kind of red zone of resistance, it retested once. It's kind of in this potential falling wedge, which is also a bullish pattern. And by bullish, I mean this has a 68% chance at some point breaking to the upside, which again, this is inverted, so that would be to the downside. So again, I wanted to mention before we go into one or two short token charts that I'm watching, that this is a strategy that I use to be able to know when to time these short tokens as far as opening the positions, right? This makes it so my brain can look at this chart and look at it bullishly. I'm basically waiting for a breakout and then either a higher low or, you know, a double bottom, right? Back down here on this now support level to open up potential short positions, because you would expect this to trend higher at that point, which obviously if the chart is inverted, again, just means it would be losing this support level, right? And it would actually be trending lower. Now the measured move for that, you know, if you just want to kind of guesstimate it or do something kind of like a safe measured move, moving all sorts of stuff around here, but it'd be back down here somewhere around, like, let's say 28K, right? And that would make sense. A breakdown, retest 28K. We often know that if price action is breaking to the downside, that there could be a wick a lot lower. Maybe we even go down and retest something near 26, 27K, you know, before putting in potentially a higher low and then making another push higher at that point. Okay, so for this short token example, I only want to use one coin. And I want to make a statement that isn't going to be 100% accurate. There's always going to be outliers. But this is definitely very close to accurate when it comes to mid and large cap coins, outside of those couple of outliers that maybe just recently had some hype worth of news. But anyway, I want to put that caveat out before I make the statement. But in my opinion, especially, you can almost choose any coin that's mid or large cap specifically, and they almost all have the same pattern right now. Bitcoin, obviously, if it breaks down and loses 2 or 3%, you've got all these bots that people use nowadays to trade on a lot of these exchanges, and they're just designed to sell X amount when Bitcoin goes down or buy X amount, so on and so forth, right? And so many of them are programmed so similar, especially across the different coins, that you'll notice the patterns almost all look the same. I especially noticed this just recently. Now, I've always noticed it, but when you're in the middle of a bull market, you have different coins pumping, well, you know, because of this news, and then they, you know, chill out for a bit, and then another couple days later a different coin pumps. But when you start entering what we would call, you know, definitely a midterm bear market, a lot of these coins just have the same patterns, right? So I'm using AXS as my example for trading the short token, and this is what's known as a bearish pennant. And it's a symmetrical triangle, but the reason you call it a bearish pennant is up here it had this support level, right? And it broke down, had a pretty good dump, right? And then now it's just consolidation. in what's this symmetrical triangle, which a symmetrical triangle is just a series of lower highs, higher lows. It's basically the market not being sure what direction they want to take this coin. So it's kind of an accumulation pattern. If this ends up getting to the end and never does go higher or lower, then it's just going to probably range, and eventually it could turn into a rounded bottom and eventually be bullish, right? But from a statistical standpoint, it is a continuation pattern, meaning that whatever direction it came into the pattern, it has a higher likelihood of breaking that direction. So in this case, it came into it from the, as a dump, more or less, higher, came down into it, right? And now it's consolidating. So the likelihood of this going down is higher than up, and the measured move would just be taking the length of this quote-unquote flagpole, pennant pole, put it over here, blah, blah, blah. So, and that doesn't really matter to me. I don't really trade patterns for their targets as much as just trading them to take the percentage of when they're going to break higher or lower. And then I go from there, and I just then my targets are just support and resistance levels. But so what I'm looking for when it comes to this coin and how I would trade it from a 3S short token perspective on KuCoin is obviously if this thing breaks to the upside, I'd probably just leave it alone. I mean, obviously at that point, that would be a long signal, but I'm a little hesitant to long anything in the market right now, especially with any sort of confidence. I'm looking more for short opportunities, to be honest with you. So if this were to break down and get a bearish retest of the bottom side of this symmetrical triangle, at that point, as soon as it hit the bearish retest, of course, you'd be keeping your eyes at all times on Bitcoin. But once Bitcoin, for this to be breaking down, that obviously would mean Bitcoin's breaking down. So I would watch Bitcoin for its bearish retest of whatever level it just lost. And then you can hop over here to this 3x Axis 3S short token chart on TradingView and, trade it as if you're trading a long setup. Obviously, this looks bullish. It's already had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times of support. Now, the more times support is tested, obviously it can break. So I say bullish only because it's at support, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't break down, right? If the actual coin of Axis goes up, if it breaks to the upside of that triangle, this could easily break down and lose the support. But as far as, this pattern overall, you've got this long downtrend. It broke out. This is now a neckline of potential double bottom. But really what you look for anytime you've had a long downtrend and it breaks out is for double bottoms or at least an accumulation phase. And that's what this is. This is the market waiting to see if the regular coin loses support, at which point, this will obviously begin to pump up. So I'm going to go into more detail in a future video that's specific to just this. It won't be a daily video where I'm just, talking about the market and Bitcoin and the SPX and so forth. I will make a video in the next couple of days that is specific to how to trade these coins. I just wanted to mention that these are the coins that I'm putting more emphasis on right now that I am longs. And that's just because my overall confidence in the market is obviously not great. Thank you guys for sticking around till the end. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe. We'll catch you tomorrow. It's